It's just a couple of things that I need to note for myself so I don't forget, that's quite important. Firstly, the matter of basically who does this concern? Really, I kind of want to give a very, very short briefing, or as short as possible, just about this to Colchester Council Watch channel and to the Stonehenge Alliance. Now, I did telephone one of the guys who is in one of the highway charity groups connected, affiliated with Stonehenge Alliance the other day. He did listen to me for quite a while, but I don't really think that he understands this subject or is interested in it. And I can't get in touch with Stonehenge Alliance. That they're not an easy place to get in touch with. They're one of these type of places that they don't have an address on there. You can't telephone them. They've got their own circles, their own clique, their own cliques, where, like roller mogfling and archaeology societies and so forth. And I don't necessarily think they're that interested in opinions. But they said that they wanted opinions, but I think they just go by a pure majority of opinions. But the thing is, when you've got a weight of a majority of opinions, it doesn't necessarily always mean... It's like signing a petition. You can get loads of people to sign a petition, but it's just their signature, Now, they've been asking... They were asking, because they lost that High Court case... They were asking whether they should go to the Supreme Court. Now, even though they got loads of petition signatures to Parliament, because they didn't win the High Court case, although the project was pulled, but they're saying they're left with all these planning applications on the council, but they run out anyway after 5 years. Now, there is a few things that people, I think, should be interested in and need to learn. Firstly, Extinction Rebellion are going on about these citizens' assemblies, that we should have these citizens' assemblies, right? Well, we sort of kind of used to, but don't anymore. And I'll explain how and why. And Colchester Council Watch are a channel that are really keen and interested on councils and what they're up to and what they're doing in their chamber, actually in the chamber, and what happens in there, what gets done, what gets said, and how they do the proceedings and so forth, right? Now, I know that people like Colchester Council Watch and the Stonehenge Alliance, Stonehenge Alliance being academic themselves, they are very, very, up on proceedings and the current proceedings, right? The current council policies, the current council rules, the current laws, the current procedures for councils. I'm well aware of what the policies, what the procedures and what the rules are for the council. I know all that, but as I have demonstrated with other things, not just the council's procedures and processes, like with the Ancient Liberties of London, Magna Carta and these whole ULEZ fines and various other things that we've been pulling the government out on, which they've been breaking their own rules anyway, and then certain acts and amendments that they changed and did, they weren't supposed to do anyway. And also the original meaning of things that gets forgotten, not changed, like elections, for example, cheating in elections, election propaganda, cheating by candidates and political parties, and what are the election rules in law, and Ofcom, and them not enforcing them properly, and them not really changing the law or the meaning of the law, but sort of like not abbreviating or redacting it just so you don't know what it means, but it does have a meaning that hasn't actually changed. And that's down to vocabulary and a more detailed, thorough explanation. And this is why I like to read older acts of law, because it's not all down to amendments of legislation how they can change things, because some things that it hasn't actually changed, right? And it still means what it meant before, but they just don't tell you what it means. They don't explain to you what it actually means, right? For example, with Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was on GB News, and and Ofcom was saying that he can't do news programs, but he can do like current affairs, which isn't actually true. I've just been looking through some of the very old election laws from the 1688, around the 1688 Bill of Rights sort of era of William Orange, and the detail in the acts, the amount of context of explanation of what it actually is meant to mean is amazing, because it hasn't, the meaning of it and what it's actually telling you is unlawful hasn't actually changed, right? But what they do is they kind of like brief it now so that it sounds like it's not as extensive, and like they're not actually meant to. We know that they're not allowed to like buy people presents and gifts for votes, but they're not allowed to provide entertainment. And when Rees-Mogg was on GB News, he was being paid to entertain people, and he was actually running, a lot of the Nigel Farage stuff, the entertainment programs, because Ofcom admit they can't do actually proper news presenting, but it's still a form of it. It doesn't have to be a movie or a soap opera. This is what Loose Women is. It's all entertainment at the end of the day. So that's another thing that we're pulling him up on. There's loads of election rules, and people have got a gut feeling that Mogg shouldn't have been on there really when he's an MP presenting a programme and getting all this money. There's just a gut feeling that this is wrong, and but Ofcom are going, oh well, even Professor Tim Wilson, like Professor, is like he's going along with it all, like, oh yeah, Ofcom rules, and MPs can do this but can't do that. I'm just like, oh no, Professor, why don't you get out some proper legislation and do some proper research, and then actually it turns out that it means the basis of cause and effect of election propaganda is a lot more extensive and wider than what most people think, and that comes down to logic of cause and effect. Anyone who's insightful and intuitive and thinks about these things kind of knows that. They're like, that seems to be, doesn't they think that, it kind of influences people when they do this or say that or do that? And anyone who can think in their head, you just know the science of cause and effect and certain things that they're doing that you think maybe they shouldn't be doing that, and then it turns out that no, they shouldn't be doing it, right? That's just an example that William III Act, William Orange, right? When you read these older acts, they've just got a lot more context in and a lot more explanation to it, to what it is meant to be. And the reasons why these things are in place is the same. The reason hasn't changed, right? It's just that there's a lot more. There's a lot more remit for abuse now. There's a lot more ease of abuse of it, and so forth. But anyway, so that's that, and I kind of. That's just an example to get on to why it's important to read the old books and the old law and why people should be interested. And when you're reading it, think, what is this relevant to? What is it relevant to? And is there any value in this that we can understand and learn now? Now, I've already been talking for nearly 10 minutes. Why is this important to Stonehenge Alliance? And why is it important to Colchester Council Watch and Extinction Rebellion? Well, the thing is, Extinction Rebellion want these citizens' assemblies, right, where it's more the people getting engaged and voting, right? Well, I can tell you, it actually used to be. Now, while I'm making this talk, I've got this picture up of these juries, right? Now, I was interested in, like, the when I learned about the courts and the right to, I was wanting to learn about it. All this starts from the right to petition, petitioning Parliament, and then when you find out the tumultuous petitioning act, it's got to be done through courts and so forth, or it had to be done from 1661 onwards until 1985, and then you think, what are all these processes and things, and then you think you have to end up learning about the origin of the courts, right, and the framework and system of the courts, and then you have to then you end up getting onto the council, right? Now at the moment, what the problem is currently, which links all these, what links Extinction Rebellion, what links Stonehenge Alliance, and what links Colchester Council Watch, is that they're not happy with how the council's been run. And they're not happy with the outcomes, with the planning approvals for Stonehenge Tunnel. They want to do something about it. Greenbelt land, building housing estates, all these things. They want more involvement and they want more ability to engage, rather than just these councillors and these corporate entities that seem to have taken over the highways department and putting in BT things and surveillance cameras for the police and so forth and so forth. Lots of things, right? Now, I was interested in this whole jury thing because of the right to petition. We go around, we get signatures from the public, the electors, right? The elector, in fact, in the Representation of the People Act, they use the Election Act, the register, to choose the juries, right? So I know that going around and collecting petition signatures yourself from the general public has a very strong connection to the jury, right? Because but the jury are chosen at random. Okay, but I learned and I read that they had these permanent jurors called jurats, and some of them served for lifetime. In some villages in Kent, there are records, and they only replaced them if they passed away, and they had to get new ones. They were elected for life, or for a certain term, or but more for longer term, right? And then I learned about the different courts, like a court of civil requests, and you've got the 100, which was the divisional court, the 100, which the magistrate, it ended up becoming the magistrate's court, right? And then they also had the assizes and the quarter sessions. The assizes were twice a year until later on, and then they become more frequent, about 3 or 4 times a year. But the quarter sessions were 4 times a year, and the assizes were twice a year. But they were when the circuit judges came round under the King's authority for more severe offences or matters to do with people and the Crown, the King, right? Although he still could appeal to Westminster Hall and to Parliament. Now the thing is, right, this is quite important. And actually, I had a intuition about this. I had a kind of a gut feeling about this, because as I'm reading all these other things and learning about it, I start to get a picture of building the big picture up of history. And even though I haven't read every book, and even though I haven't read the book on this or the book on that or the book on the other to absolutely confirm my intuitions, I still got a general feeling or reflection or understanding that, this probably is this or this must be that. And then what happens is, usually, most of the time, not all the time, I'm not right all the time, but generally I tend to kind of find that when I read more, I find that my intuition was correct, or my suspicions or intuition was correct, right? Now, this is the thing. It's looking like, and I still haven't finished reading, because you can't read everything. There's so many things to read. Some people are just absolute, bookworms, and they can eat through loads of books in no time, right? I'm not a big reader of books, but I read, as much. I read what I can manage. Now, so there was permanent jurors, right? And I got a bit confused because also I was finding that they were picking juries at random, okay, like in the William Penn trial, right? Now it's looking like, and this is, I know you think, what's the point in making this video? Well, there are some things now that I've read last night that this is why I'm making the video, which have confirmed. So that's certain and sure. So now I'm using that, which I know is certain and sure, and this is what I'm going to explain to you. Why, and then you'll realise why I'm explaining it to you. But I'm also going to I'm going to have to assume some of it, which is what I haven't read yet 100%. But I just want to update my big picture of it, right? Of what generally. So it's looking like, from what I've updated my knowledge with so far, and some of this is confirmed, it's looking like your hundreds courts, right, your local divisional courts, which is your lowest court, right, which is now the magistrates' court, but it was the hundreds court, right, and you've got some of the big cities have charters and their own separate thing with a mayor. Not everyone has a mayor, right? You only have a mayor if you're usually a city and you've got your own charter, and it's got like the City of London, the Ancient Cities and Liberties of London. If you're given a charter and so forth, right, and you get kind of like your own sort of deal in a way for how it's set up, right? But usually so you have justices of the peace, right? You have justices of the peace, which are like magistrates, and they were using the word magistrates in the early 1800s, right, and before. And you had these councillors, which are aldermen. If you look at the William Penn trial, you've got the mayor. This is in a criminal trial at the Old Bailey. You've got Sam Sterling's the mayor. You've got, it might even be 6 aldermen. It's over there in front of me. I'll have to count them. Then you've got the sheriffs in there, but there aren't any attorneys from what I've read. And then you've got your jury, right? And there's the recorder as well. The recorder. Now, those aldermen actually are the councilmen, the councillors, from what I gather, right? And I thought they might have been jurors or the jury, but they're not, because in the William Penn trial, they have got a jury in there that's picked at random, and that's because it's the assizes and it's like the Crown Court, right? So in the city, they usually have a random jury, and when you have your quarter sessions and assizes, because those quarter sessions and assizes are only periodic, they're only periodical, so it dissolves, and then you don't have another till the justices come back around on the circuit and then choose another load of people, right? So when you have your more serious matters to be put to the assizes or quarter sessions, which are your circuit judges, right, and that's usually the court you appeal to from the hundreds court, you have your random juries that are chosen at random, and the sheriff organises all that and so forth. But in your 100 at your local court, with that 100 court, that local court is with your councillors, right? Now the aldermen, the councillors really are like they're the jurats, but they're you elect them. You vote for them, and they serve for a period of time. But now, what it's looking like, this is for the Scotland model, but I think the Scotland model was what carried on for a bit longer, more traditional than in England. But so, as far as I understand, right, you vote for the sheriff, you elect the sheriff, which we don't even elect them anymore. We don't elect the chief police officer. And you elect the magistrates. We don't elect the magistrates anymore, right? Because they get elected, they get chosen, the councillors choose them. We don't vote for them. Or in fact, anyone can be a magistrate now if they want to volunteer for it or get the job, right? So we don't know if they're pro-police people or pro-speed camera people or just, people who, they're not voted by the people anyway. Magistrates are not voted in by the people, right? That's for sure. So you only really had one kind of like local divisional court, right? You didn't have like the county court and the magistrates court and the council, because it was kind of like, it was sort of like all in one, right? It was kind of like just that. It was just like the thing, right? And so you've got your councillors and these aldermen who are sort of like the jury, basically, right? But kind of like full-time elected. And if you complain about a crime or an offence, you've got a form and you fill the affidavit in and you take it to the sheriff, right? And then you can get the sheriff to either him to go and arrest the person until they go to the court, or you can get a warrant yourself to go after them, or sometimes everyone had to, like hue and cry, the whole village had to go after them. But once you've gone and reported it, then you get the warrant, then everyone's allowed to go after them. Then it's almost like what we should be doing with the right to petition. Once you are officially doing a petition on the government website, and you filed it with the government, then you can go about doing it, or what you need to do it. You need evidence. You need some evidence for it, because Parliament is saying, just write down the basics of it, and then if you get summoned to Parliament, then you can bring your evidence in. But, bring your evidence in, that means you've got some. That means you went and got some, you obtained some. How did you obtain it? If you ain't got any right to obtain it, then how can you? This is like filling the affidavit and then into the sheriff, and then him saying, okay, then everyone catch the criminals, anyone in the village then has got the right to go after the criminals or bring them in if they see them. They have to, there were quite a few forms on there for things like that, and little forms, which is quite novel, with like little oaths and stuff. And also I found on there that this is another thing I need to mention. This is separate now, but it's just a little separate thing, which is that when you vote, people who go to vote, when you go to vote, not like the candidate, the elector. There was an oath for the elector. There was a little elector oath. It's quite novel. Like when you get sworn in on a jury, and or you have to go, if you go give evidence as a witness and you swear. There's a little jurors. There's a little elector's oath for voters, and it's that when you go cast your vote, that you haven't been coerced or bribed or given any rewards or anything like that in exchange for your vote, right? Which I find ridiculous for political parties, because political parties get you to vote for them by doing things for you, because they'll actually be promising you things, won't they? Like promising you, we'll don't worry, we'll get you a new McDonald's, and we'll get you a new cinema and a new football pitch, and you vote for us, we'll sort this town out. But just a minute, that means that you're making promises for votes, favours. That means that Labour is saying, vote for us, and we'll sort you out. Get you a new football pitch. I'll get you a new cinema. Vote for us. Interesting. Isn't that illegal? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you're voting for these people to be in a court making judgments, how can they make fair, impartial judgments? If they've done fair, it's like the justice. They're not allowed to do any favours, right? All that ties into it. That's literally blown my mind, actually, and that's a completely separate video for these parties being illegal. I don't know how they managed to get the Whigs and the Tories in, but remember, at this point, there isn't the Labour Party, because the Labour Party wasn't until 1900, and there wasn't actually the Liberal Party, so to say. There were Whigs and Tories, these groupings together, but it was nothing like these, kind of like a company a brand, a business, with all the things and that, and then enjoying them and the policies and that, because it really, like I said, like, how can you have a strategy if firstly they have to sign a selfless policy in the council, but how have they got all these plans and things that they're going to do if everything that goes on the council table has to be judged on the merit of the evidence in front of them and with applied law, right? You can't. So, I mean, how can Labour plan anything, or the Conservatives? They can't, right? Because it's almost like, would you want a Tory jury? Would you want a jury of Conservatives? Or would you want a Labour jury? You wouldn't, would you? Ironically, they started taking the juries out of the civil courts and magistrates' courts in the mid-1800s, before the Labour Party was formed proper. And really, in these mid-1800s, they're still talking about kind of Whigs. It's early 1800s with the Luddites kicking off after that petition for minimum wage, which got rejected, and then everyone got pissed off. If they were on juries, they wouldn't have been letting all the mill people build all the mills and the machinery. So after that Luddite thing kicked off, some of the Luddites were getting hung by juries and prosecuted, but you might end up getting juries where they might favour them, like now Extinction Rebellion. I mean, if the Luddites took off and you see, also the government won't give them a minimum wage, they turned it down. So if you're getting juries of people who are pissed off also that the minimum wage, building all these factories, they wouldn't have been able to do it if they hadn't have pulled the juries out of the county court. And they definitely wouldn't have been able to get political party control of the council, which I think is illegal and criminal. I don't know how the Whig Party operated as a party. It was more just like a general affiliation. They started wearing certain things and associated to certain ideas and beliefs. It was more of, I think, I need to read up. This is what I need to read up about. I need to read up about the Whigs to see exactly what it was. But they all just started sitting on one side or the other side of the chamber and had, similar ideas or whatever. It wasn't anything like a packaged franchise. I don't know if they had, this is a Whig headquarters or whatever, but they just tend to drink in the same clubs, didn't they? Like they tend to socialise together. And this is when you get the socialists, George Galloway ain't going to go drink with a load of, Tories. He went to the Labour clubs and drink with Labour people. That's where you go. So you associate with people. Wasn't like welcome to McDonald's, welcome to, the Tory Party headquarters at all, right? And in fact, when you get onto the legal side of what's actually going on, it cannot be lawful. It cannot be lawful on the principle of the oaths. Cannot be possible. Can actually be possible. And what we find the councils have been doing is criminal and corrupt. And everything that they've got now, what they've done to us, what they've raped us, they've raped the countryside, they've raped the towns, they've done it is purely criminal, illegal. How they've got all these football stadiums and cinemas and McDonald's and KFC drive-thrus and all that it's crime, pure crime and criminals. And now the police chiefs are getting all the security cameras and barriers in and everything. But the sheriff plays a role in all this. Don't worry about that. And they're meant to be elected, but they're not anymore. So let's go back to basically the 100, right? From what I read last night, I'm quite certain, right? I'm pretty sure, at least for this Scottish model, which is meant to be, it's older, but that's why that it's a good model, just because it carried on going for longer in the traditional form. which to get that form in England, I think you're looking like 1600s, 1620s. But I have seen some evidence to support this on National Archives in Kent, so I know that this Scottish model was similar in Kent as well, but not in the city, in the rest of the counties and so forth. So when you vote these aldermen in, they're effectively kind of like, I think that they're the jurats, right? And they're like full-time kind of thing. And then you've got the magistrates are kind of like, the head of the council sat, you get your cabinet at the council basically, right? Now, the thing is that it operated like a little bit like a court, which I thought it did, but it did because you go and give evidence and so forth, and you can write down objections to things and so forth, and people write down whether they object to something or not, right? But get this right, you could go in there and get an affidavit. I think you could get that from the sheriff actually. I think or the magistrate, but. I've took some screenshots of quite a lot of things that stood out, but I'm not going to read the entire book, but I've got the important parts of it. Effectively, right, your councillors, right? So when you go in there, they're kind of like making. They all make decisions, right? They're kind of, the magistrates are the ones who make the order and put it through. But the jurats, the aldermen, like the councillors, are the ones now they vote, don't they? Well, that's effectively like the jury, okay, right? So it's like the jury of the 100, the divisional court, the little local area, right? Your councillors. But juries they've got this thing where you can have a view, right? Which is if you need to, sometimes if there's been a crime, they need a view. They need to go to the place so they can get an idea and see if something was possible to happen or not possible to happen or how it might have happened. It's called a view, right? But these jurats, aldermen, councillors, well, when they're doing things for the council and making orders and decisions about planning and highways and so forth, they need a view, so they're out and about, right? And they can also be given evidence and look at evidence, inspect evidence, right? They can look at evidence and so forth. But that's what councillors do now. They're going about, when the bin's broken, or the bin, the street, there's, the fire hydrant, exploded and water going everywhere, whatever it is, right? They need to go out for a view to look at it and assess it or whatever. But they've got assessors, but they're like an extremely active and participating jury, right? Now, this is the thing, right? If you get, so it's looking to me like they're dealing with like disputes between parties, applications and things, and what should and shouldn't be done in the town, but also the crime, right? Now, if there was a serious crime, you get put in the gaol, right? And they don't hear the matter. When the assizes or quarter sessions come round with the circuit judges, right, then they will hear the serious crime, right? And you'll get a jury, but it will be chosen from random at the assizes or quarter sessions, or a grand jury, right? Not those 6 councillor jurats, right? But also, sometimes in the local matters for the highways or expanding, building a house, or all these local civil request matters, you could call a jury in, right? But not just the jury, like the 6 aldermen, not the jurats, right? What we're saying is like sometimes they need to assess, whether or not we should be paying certain money or taxes or all kinds of things. And what they do with that is when they call a jury and when the assizes or quarter sessions come round, like when there's a serious crime, right, they've got a random jury in there, right, deciding on money for local council, how much money they should get or not get, and so forth, like that, right? Some matters of the local council, right, had a random jury selected. And the assizes or quarter sessions judges would say it with a local jury. Now, also, this is the part that, because that's evidence that there was a lot more local decision making than just the councillors of the 100. It's almost kind of like we have a Crown Court with a jury, but for things that the council would now decide, but would be decided by the jury in the Crown Court, but for council matters like how much we should give them for a highway, or even if they should have a highway, or develop something, or whatever, so that a random jury was part of local council making decisions. Now, also, I need to remember these other things. So, if the council, we're not talking about the assizes or quarter sessions coming round, just the local 100, if they're keeping it within there, right, just within these magistrates and those aldermen, right, if the locals put appeals and objections in on a matter that's to be decided, that the councils are voting on, and the magistrates, right, and you're not happy with the outcome of it, right, you can appeal it. There was actually an appeal, so it's not like, there's nothing you can do about it. You could actually appeal it, and they had to appoint a committee of 3 aldermen or 3 jurats or 3 councillors or whatever to decide the appeal, and then you put more evidence to them. So actually you could appeal the decision of the council, right? They don't do that now. They say, the council's made a decision, it's done, it's made a decision. No, you can actually appeal it. That you're meant to actually have an appeal to a committee on that council, right? So there is a right of appeal to a council decision, right? Also, another thing is that so you can also petition. They do have petitions, and you can go and collect a petition, right? In fact, the magistrates were also petitioning, and the sheriff was also petitioning the other courts for things, or Parliament for things as well, right? Now, this is where we've got. Have you heard of the judicial review? At the moment, they've got everyone thinking that if the council does something that everyone doesn't like, right, you get a judicial review, right? But your judicial review can't overturn the decision. It's not an appeal. Well, there is a right to appeal to the council, and there is meant to be the right to have it appealed by the council, by the committee, right? But separate to that, the judicial review that we know of now is meant to scrutinise, did the council do something wrong? Did they not follow a procedure, or not follow a policy, or not apply the law properly, or break the law, right? That's actually not appealing their decision. It's saying that they did something wrong, so maybe their order's not even valid. Maybe it's illegal, or maybe they broke the law, right? Now, they call it a judicial review. Well, judicial is law, right? But now they're getting us to pay for very, very expensive lawyers, as if it's like, for us to pay for, right? Because we want to challenge the council, right? And they're getting these judicial reviews or whatever. Now, remember, What did I say about the assizes and quarter sessions coming round? The judicial review is not by that only court in the area, right? When the assizes and quarter sessions come round, that's where the judicial review is going to be with a jury. With a random jury of the local people, right? And a justice. So if they broke the law or done something wrong, right, they can look into that, right? Now, the thing is, with that avenue, you can go all the way up to Parliament as well, right? Now, you've got this Lord Advocate in Scotland, which is like the Attorney General, right? And they can actually act. They can act, right? You know, if there's something done wrong or whatever, or they're actually supposed to if they've done something wrong, because obviously it's the government that have done something wrong, right? Now, this is the thing. You need to try and get the model for this in your mind, right? So, when the council are doing something, right, like redeveloping the town centre, it's the council, we're the taxpayer, we fund it all, they're doing it on our behalf, right? Now, alternatively, when you've got a claimant or applicant, right, say the farmer comes in, right, the farmer comes in and he wants to build a new barn, right? He's another party now. The farmer is another party to you. He goes in and he asks the council if he can build a new barn. And people say whether they want to object to it or not, right? And if they object to it, they've got to come and give evidence and so forth, and almost like a court, right? The farmer's not the council, right? The farmer isn't the council, right? So he's another party, like in a civil dispute. It's like, John owes me £5, right? I want to take him to court, right? And the applicant is not the council, he's another party. The council are meant to be impartial, like a judge, because it's like a court, right? Now, if I am opposing the applicant, the farmer, he's not the council, right? So, you know, if we want to get lawyers, then, you know, whatever. The court are the mediator, right? So, why should the council pay if they're impartial for the legal stuff to challenge the applicant? Because at the end of the day, he's the applicant and anyone else is the respondent. So it's like in, you know, John owes Paul £50, right? Paul wants to build a barn, the other people in the village don't, right? Okay. And if the applicant, you know, if you want to challenge the applicant, then, but once the council have made a decision, like I said, there is a right to appeal. But if the council do something wrong, if the council are at fault, right, then this is the thing. Why do you have to pay for the legal against the council when you paid for the council yourself? You won't be paying to fund the council and then pay a lawyer, your own private lawyer, when it's your council, you're funding it, right? So if there is a legitimate complaint against the council, it really should be like, you know, the Lord Advocate or Attorney General. But I say legal services, but the thing with legal services in the council is that they kind of like are the council, so they're not going to do their self, right? Now this is the thing with Stonehenge Tunnel when it's the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State with Stonehenge Tunnel, right? They've pulled the funding and withdrawn the project. It's a government project, right? Now, we oppose, when all the people oppose them by a petition, right? They're saying, oh, we object, it's an objection, we object to it, right? But the government aren't the farmer, private person. The government aren't John, who owes Paul £15. The government are paid for by us, the taxpayer, right? And we sign petitions to get them to do things, right? And particularly if they've broken the law or done something illegal, right? We don't have to pay for the legal for it. Now, if the government have pulled a project and admitted that they're not going to do it, but the council are left with loads of planning orders that were put through in connection with it, then why should we have to pay for a lawyer to get those planning things overturned? The council are left stuck because the council are like, oh, we put these orders through, but the government have pulled the funding. Well, you better undo the orders. Well, they say, well, we already made the orders now, there's no route of appeal. Well, there actually is. Firstly, that was a lie. There is a route of appeal within council local authorities. And also, because it's the Secretary of State, the government's project, not a private farmer or John or Paul or Philip, right? Because it's the government's project that we paid for out of our tax money, right? Then the council legal services who are stuck with those planning permissions, they've got to get them undone. They've got to pay for the legal to get them overturned. Not us. Because we're paying for the Stonehenge Tunnel project. They're not private. It's not the farmer who's applying for planning permission and we're opposing him. Because the council aren't applying for planning permission for his barn because they don't own it. Right? But we have the council. Now, another thing to this is you can actually do a petition. You can actually go and get a petition, right? And you can actually get a petition to get the Attorney General to engage and so forth. Now, you can actually also get a petition to get a jury in as well for it. You can ask a jury in. And because if you get a petition to get a jury in, right? Well, actually, what it says is, I think it said that you petition for the sheriff to call to hold it. So you can actually say, like, you know, if you didn't want the council to hear the case, right? You could actually, you know, when I said, like, if it's a serious crime, right, then they get put in the jail and you wait for the assizes or quarter sessions to come round, and then the serious crime gets heard with a jury, right? Okay. Well, similar to that, before this whole council have made a decision on it and they voted on it, and then, okay, but then you still have this right to appeal to this committee of three, whatever, in the council. If immediately, right, before they do that, and when you when you're objecting, you can actually say, oh, just a minute, we want to raise it higher at that stage. So the magistrates and the 6 councillors, the aldermen, and obviously now we've got loads of councillors, but they had 6. Each of those Scottish areas had 6. Now, you know, councillors, you know, you've got all these different wards and that. They've got a lot more full-time jurors, these eldermen councillors now, who, like, you know, a view to a kill or whatever, you know, they're out and about, they're sworn in, they're busying and meeting people, you know, meeting us, complaints, giving them evidence, and then going to sit in front of the council with it, right, with your 3 magistrate councillors, whatever, right? They're active because they're sworn in, permanent or long term. You can go above that council. And this is not judicial review. This is like, we don't want them to hear it. Right? Particularly now when it's all Labour or Conservative. So you can actually go straight to the assizes or quarter sessions. You can petition to go to the assizes or quarter sessions and have a jury anyway. Just like, oh, it's a serious crime. And you can actually get the Lord Advocate as well, which is like the Attorney General. But I think that Council Legal Services. But if you can do that to the assizes, then you can do it to Parliament. Right? Because Parliament's the highest court, the right to petition House of Commons. So at that point, really, on any council matter, you have got the right to petition Parliament. But that's not as well as them making a decision in the chamber themselves, of which you can appeal to a committee to, or get a judicial review, aka the Assizes and Quarter Sessions, because you're immediately doing that, but not to the Assizes and Quarter Sessions, you're going to Parliament. But you've got a right, it's the right, we've got a legal right to petition the House of Commons over anything. And the thing is, it's Parliament's project. The thing with that A303 is that it is a Secretary of State for Transport's project. It is Parliament's project. It needs some planning things put through in the local council, but it's their project. So, and you've got the right to petition, but that petition, as I thought, is you can't have them at the same time. It's one or the other. And at the moment, Stonehenge Alliance did petition Parliament, but they also had a High Court case going, which is like your judicial review kind of thing or whatever, sort of, or your High Court case. But you didn't have that as you're creating like two you're creating two legal processes out of one, which is a duality. And also coming back to the hundreds court again with your six aldermen, jurors or whatever for the 100, not the assizes when it comes around, when you get a random jury each time it comes round, because it's a higher level, right? With your core 100, with your 6 aldermen, right, who you elect them, you elect the sheriff, you elect the magistrates, and you elect the aldermen, right? And you've got a little oath as well when you go vote, that you aren't taking any bribes or doing it for any favours or whatever. Well, that's a joke with Labour and Tories, right? They're promising all kinds of rewards. What are the councillors? They're actually jurors full-time, right? At the bottom level, without going higher. And would you want to vote for jurors who are all in a cult, like a political party? I wouldn't. Well, they've got a selflessness policy, and they're meant to be impartial because you're putting evidence to them. They're evaluating evidence and applying law, just like a jury, right? Now, if you've got a jury in a criminal case in a Crown Court, right, and you say, these aren't randomly chosen, we voted them in, right? Would you vote for a Tory or Labour jury in a Crown Court for criminal cases? Would you else like? That's the whole point in having them selected randomly, so it's fair. How can it be fair if they're all Labour? And that's why they scrapped them, because the mill owners with the Luddites in the start of the 1800s were smashing all the mills up because Parliament wouldn't lift the minimum wage up. So the last thing they want is us objecting to them building factories everywhere and then us saying, oh, we want to take it to the assizes when it comes round, with a fucking jury and chosen at random, who will all be workers. No, they're not going to let him build a mill when they've been smashing it up, are they? And this is the thing, after they distracted all the juries and after they removed it all and they got, this is when we're going to have to start a political party and get them all to follow it, and then we'll get these councillors all in. This is where it goes, and then you got your suffragettes are kicking off about having the women's vote. There's no point having a women's vote when they've taken away having a random jury, because juries were made up out of random people, both men and women, I'm sure. I'm sure juries were made up out of random women. So you are having women voting, because even if the women weren't those councillors or aldermen, then at the assizes it was random. So really, women were having a vote on whether things should be built or not, really, in local areas. And I don't think that it mattered whether the MP was a man or not. You know? And that is why, really, if we'd have kept that model, we wouldn't need a citizens' assembly, because we already had one. You could already petition for it to go to a jury in a local area over planning decisions. And never mind the council now doing these consultations, and then they're saying they don't have to go by the consultation decision. Well, if you petitioned the council for it to go to the assizes or quarter sessions when it came round, then you would. Now, there were some things that didn't, but generally, it's looking like general things like there's like taxation, levies on money and things like that, building consents, highways. It's all intricacies in and out, but some of those decisions did go to a jury, and other ones. But I'm quite sure by the looks of it, if they really wanted to, they could petition for it to go. And I don't think that you had to even get like all the village to sign it. It was just like you had to get someone had to, say, well, what, petition it to the other court thing, right? So all this, we wouldn't have any of these. At the moment, we've got all these Greenbelt groups, all these Facebook groups that are panicking frantically about planning developments and so forth and so forth. And the government are going, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we want to do this. No, you do what you want to do in the local area. I think this is why Scotland is like what you call not as high population. And I think it is why they've only got, Glasgow and Edinburgh and Perth and Aberdeen cities, and the rest of it is still kind of countryside, because they kept that model for longer. And Scottish people, I think that's what happened to England. If we'd have kept that, they wouldn't have allowed all this Bournville chocolates village in Birmingham and the rest, because the people just wouldn't have. People don't want building going on everywhere. And that controls the population, because you can't have that many children if they haven't got the houses for them. You just can't have them. And also, if you ain't got the space to have kids, then you probably wouldn't have them, and you would be doing other stuff like going on holiday or going out with your mates. And you would make decisions like, oh, we can't have kids yet because you haven't got anywhere to put them, It actually is all forced. And now, knowing what these big corporate entities are doing, they do, it's all money. Because none of us, we aren't going in the council and putting planning permission in for fact. Who can afford that? No one. They can. But then these are the ones who get they're the ones who get contracts with the council, and Care, Balfour Beat Me, Taylor Wimpey. These companies are all successful because they are working with the council for a reward. They're getting business out of it. And the council are making decisions and these companies are making money. And then they get the showrooms everywhere. And then, some councils like it. It's the votes on the council. They're claiming they're signing a selflessness policy when they're actually voting on there. It can't be possible with a Labour Party. It cannot. And if you think about it, what that council actually is a court. And it's promising decisions. It's promise. If you vote for us, if you give us your vote, right, we will build you a football stadium, right? That's fucked. That's like going into the Crown Court, right? And if those jurors are all elected, them saying, if you elect us, right, we will acquit all of the rapists in England, right? It's the same thing. It's like saying, here's a jury, they're not selected at random, you can vote for them. And then the jury's saying, well, we're Labour jurors, if you vote for us, right, we're going to let all the protesters out and acquit them all. And if you vote for the Tory jurors, we're going to, lock everyone up for, calling people cunts on the internet. We're going to put them in prison for calling people cunts, which is what Stan wants to do. That is absolutely and totally corrupt. And it's been done in such a slow length of time, over a long length of time, that we've been cheated and deceived, is how and why these big corporate entities have taken over, made an absolute killing out of us, and are killing us with their foods, and are pure greed. And now they've been bought out. We were cheated out of our jurisdiction, and now the big companies thought they were doing so well, and then even they have been tricked and cheated and bought out by a big company now. And we know that it's Charles and Prince Andrew, and they're in with Bill Gates and Tony Blair and the Fabians, and they own it all, and now they're going to put us all under surveillance. So we're being shanghaied, we're being hijacked, and now we're left with sweet fuck all, no power, except the right to petition, which they're even trying to claim that we don't even have indemnity for. So we've been fleeced. And that, what do you call him? That, William Keats, he's got a idea or principle, which I can't say that I understand it, but I trust that it's right. I could put some more time into reading it. William Keats has got this model that he sent the Speaker of Parliament in, who refused to reply to him, and he says that there's a certain thing you can do with the economy, a certain adjustment, where it will resolve a lot of the problems out, but it's not going to be good for these big corporate entities and groups and their master plan of taking over everywhere, because we'll suddenly start getting money. I think if people have got money, they won't need to work as much, and I think that I don't think there'll be like a panic and people have got loads of money, because what we need to do is make the building regulations extremely strict, ridiculously strict, but where people have got money, so they can buy nice things, they can spend money on their garden, they can even might want to help people, their neighbours and neighbourhood, and give charitable donations to people around them, right? With abundance of bouquet of flowers everywhere, right? But changing property and adapting it and building is extremely difficult to do, right? And even the companies and big organisations have got to get consent from the people before they can even propose it, right? And then that will really put a block on them. But that over Tony Blair's dead body because Fabian wants to take over the universe and he wants surveillance everywhere. But if everyone's got money, why are they going to steal anything? If William Keats' plan works and people have got loads of money, then who the fuck wants to buy anything? But they fucked it now, because what they've done is the dirty, fouling bastards have said, fuck you all. They've opened the floodgates, they've started a war, and they've flooded us. They've absolutely fucking flooded us with foreigners on purpose to create crime, to create havoc, to make us scared, and to punish us. Because over their dead bodies, by God, they will not give up the power and control, because Bill Gates needs to own the universe and know what everyone is doing every second of time with his AI. He doesn't want everyone just out enjoying themselves, having a laugh, because then everyone gets in the way of his master plan. Even if we did build all these machines for him. But we know what happened the last time when we built all the machines for them. They wouldn't lift the minimum wage up. And where is all that money? It's trillions at their disposal, and now covert military forces. Straight from the horse's mouth. Military-style campaign, beyond leaders, with trillions at their disposal. So we're fucked. And our army, they can't even, they've been told not to protect our borders on purpose. And that's from government command at the top, which is Fabian Charles. So they've told us they haven't protected this country. So the military have actually helped to destroy the ancient customs of this country. The military have actually stood by and watched us, the denaturalization of England. And denaturalization is neutralization. The army have stood there and watched as we have become denaturalized and neutralized in the name of equality, right? But yet, you don't have to, we're not, no one's going around shooting people with guns or attacking people. In fact, we are under attack when our army sold us out. And now it's worse than that, because we've got big corporate entities invading our homes with tech weapons, cannon, with tech cannon, big corporate entities with tech cannon, imposing laws on us. When you take over a foreign country and you get soldiers on the ground, you're getting control of an area with men and by force. That ex-army guy from America who goes and does things in Africa, sorts out problems people have with gangs in Africa, dangerous gangs in the wild, armed gangs like the fucking A-Team or something, right? He helps people out in countries who've got problems, right? What is happening is we've been taken over by powers, foreign powers. We're being taken over by foreign powers, which is Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates. And their powers they're enforcing foreign legal powers on us in England, in our own homes. And like in your car and stuff, like beep, 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 beep. Well, that's an English law, but it's enforced by a foreign manufacturer, a foreign device, a Mercedes, a foreign device, devices in this country. But not just our laws, these are the foreign laws. And they've even got their own laws, like, any reason or no reason, which is illegal. So they're using foreign forces, which are in disguise as entertainment and leisure, to take over. But they're actually doing it legally, because half of the policies they've got are illegal through our laws, and that's why it's an invasion, because it's unlawful. If it was lawful commerce and lawful business, then it would comply with our laws, but it doesn't. YouTube is saying, no, you will not do this or that, because it's against the religion of YouTube. It's against the policy of YouTube, right? If a foreign force comes into the country and says, right, you can't post porn even though it's legal, right? Then you're being enforced by a foreign force in your own country where it's legal, right? So we've got invading forces now. We're under invasion by Bill Gates, by Mark Zuckerberg, who is a foreign, our country is allied with America, right? Nick Clegg is an ex-deputy prime minister, but he's working overseas with Mark Zuckerberg to take our laws away from us with a foreign force. That means that he's working against that. He's invading he's helping a foreign ally to invade our country against our ancient customs, right? Illegally. Well, because they're allies, apparently it's not a threat. But when you actually think of what they're doing, it is a threat, because America's America and England's England, and America's got their laws and we've got ours. But now we haven't even got our laws, because Mark Zuckerberg's, they're even doing it to Americans. It is a military operation, and they're taking over. That's what we do. When you send an army into a country, you are putting your force down. If that country's laws were being upheld, then they would say, get out of our country, right? Well, you're not getting out of their country, so you're not obeying their laws. And you've got weapons, and weapons are illegal, and they're shooting people. Well, you can't shoot people because it's illegal to kill someone. That's murder. But they've still got weapons and they're shooting people. They're breaking the laws of that country. Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin and Bill Gates I think it's illegal. And I don't care if they're allies or not, because it's actually taken. Some of it's against Magna Carta, and the fact that these wars now are sending its denaturalization and neutralization. Why do they need to neutralize it? Because we don't want them to do. Some of us don't like all this tech, right? Excuse me, I don't like this. I didn't vote for it. Is anyone in Parliament saying, no, stop this? No. They had a Department of Innovation and Technology, Bill Gates and Michelle Donnellan. They're welcoming it in. The policies are illegal because they've encroached over our law. They've taken our rights. I've got the right to do certain things in this country. Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin and Bill Gates are stopping me from doing what's legal in my country, and their policies are illegal. That is criminal, and it's also against our customs, right? And they're actually orchestrated. I think that it is also a employed force. It's an armed employed force because they're armed with technology. And unfortunately, if Charles owns it all, right, and if he is orchestrating it through the World Economic Forum, then he is actually taking away our rights of the country that he's in charge of, beyond leaders, beyond himself, right? But the Privy Council have got the devil's oath where he can do nothing wrong. So it can't be proved because he can't actually do anything wrong in the eyes of the government, right? He's got the devil's oath, which is that nothing he does is wrong. So, like, if he's like, in Parliament in the restaurant and he nuts someone and then he fucking punches 3 people out and nuts them, it's not wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong. So he can't even get arrested because the Privy Councillors, who are the highest court in England, he can't conceive of him doing nothing he does is wrong. So he could effectively And I realise now, I think, how they're doing all these stunts, all these political actions when, you know, someone dies or that guy dies in prison or this kid goes missing or whatever. If Charles is doing it from the Privy Council, it's not bad. If Charles was causing people to disappear or even killing them, it's not bad because the judicial body around him can conceive of no wrong that he does. So if he had a special unit that he was directing to do it under his authority, it wouldn't be a bad thing. They could say, oh, it's good for the country. It's a good thing to do. So the MI6 chief can stick that up the fucking where the sun doesn't shine because I haven't taken the devil's oath, right? So that's another critical flaw with this country. But, you know, this is why they want they're claiming they want surveillance so they can know how all these things happen. Well, we know how these things happen. How the fuck did Parliament burn down? Miraculously, after the Luddites kicked off and there was loads of petitioning and they refused to change the minimum wage, right? And then Baron Denham is a Whig and he's not getting on too well with the King. And who is Robert Peel? Fabian Peel. Whoop-de-doo, Fabian Peel. I'm going to create a police force to bring all these all these Luddites into order, kicking off because we won't lift the minimum wage up. Then they're all on the streets and the crime's going through the roof. We need a police force now. Fabian Peel. Oh, look, it's Keir Starmer, the Crown Prosecutor. Just the man for the job. No, we're not raising the minimum wage. In fact, we're going to take away the pensioners' fucking money, right? And anyone who says anything wrong about it on the internet is going to prison, right? Fabian Peel, Fabian Starmer, right? You know, fuck Denham. He's the opposition, standing up for our rights. Oh, Parliament's just burned down now. What timing? Destroyed half the history of England, right? Who would have thought of it? Who might that have been? Who might have been pissed off with all that kicking off everywhere? You know, not raising the minimum wage. This is the thing. And then shortly after, we're not having these juries in the courts anymore if they're going to be kicking off about the minimum wage and not letting us build any more factories. We'll get rid of them, right? And then the next thing, we'll have the Labour Party now. They can all support the mills, all encourage them, you know, just get them all behind the Labour Party. And then let's get the women voting now. You know, well, the women want their vote, you know. Well, they would have had a vote if they'd still had the fucking jury. They'd have had the vote if they're in the fucking jury, in the fucking town, because they wouldn't have fucking built anything on the fucking pony field. Never mind all these green groups. We're being cheated by corporate entities and political parties that are completely criminal. It's all illegal. It's completely illegal. It's against the principles of law and favours for justice. And it's criminal. All of it. And it's an absolute mess. A massacre. Urban sprawl of massacre of this country. And Scotland are lucky that they had the judicial system in place to protect the countryside from becoming massacred, right? Which is what has happened to England. And that's the difference between England and Scotland and why Scotland hasn't exploded into too much of a massacre.